I've married my childhood friend 38 times. Each time, my former fiancé, Ji Fan, would come to wreck the wedding scene. He would tear off my veil with a gloomy expression and rough movements. Ji Ran, how dare you marry another man without my permission? Ignoring my cries and pleas, he would take me back and house arrest me, subjecting me to wanton humiliation. I resisted, struggled, and even called the police, trying every means to escape, but every time I would be caught by Ji Fan. He threatened me with the lives and fortunes of my childhood friend's entire family and my career prospects, forcing me to compromise again and again. However, when I finally compromised and stayed by his side obediently, he thought I was rigid and lifeless. I was reborn 37 times, and each life ended badly. During my 38th rebirth, I didn't want to endure it anymore. Since every choice seemed to be wrong, then I choose for Ji Fan to die. 1. I opened my eyes again and saw the gentle and affectionate face of my childhood friend, Qin Zhan. He choked up and said, Ran, I finally married you, but there was no ripple in my heart. This is my 38th rebirth, including the original life. I have married Qin Zhan 39 times. Each time, the wedding was never completed smoothly. Ji Ran, sure enough, the next second, Ji Fan's enraged voice sounded. I turned my head and saw his figure already appearing at the end of the red carpet, staring at me with a gloomy expression. Qin Zhan immediately stood guard in front of me protectively. Don't be afraid, he said firmly. Today is our wedding. I won't let anyone ruin this wonderful day. It's useless. The Ji family is a business tycoon with great power and influence. So even though Qin Zhan and I kept the news of our marriage airtight, and we even set the wedding location on the back mountain of a distant relative's hometown of Qin Zhan, he could still find out and come in time to stop it. And Qin Zhan and I, one is an orphan with no one to rely on, and the other is an ordinary student from a small town who excels in exams, against Ji Fan, the only son of the Ji family. It's simply like a mayfly shaking a tree or a mantis trying to block a cart. Qin Zhan had already instructed his relatives that as soon as Ji Fan appeared, some people would immediately hold hoes and machetes, intending to intimidate them, but obviously, they were no match for these well-trained professional bodyguards. Ji Fan didn't even ask them to take action. He threw out large amounts of red banknotes, and those villagers immediately bent down to pick them up, escorted by bodyguards. Ji Fan came to me unobstructed. Qin Zhan was held back by the bodyguards and shouted heartbreakingly, Ji Fan, you're not allowed to touch her. Ji Fan ignored him and just sneered at me. Ji Ran, you've really got some nerve. He tore off my veil and corsage in one go, and there was an uncontrollable violence between his handsome eyebrows and eyes. How dare you marry another man without my permission? Aia, checking in at the famous scene. Brother Ji is so handsome. I think the female lead should stop struggling and just submit to our brother Ji. Yeah. He has already realized his mistake. He loves you so much. Just go back with him obediently. My pupils trembled. I was shocked when I saw these colorful bullet comments in front of me. These didn't appear in the previous 37 times. Ji Ran, are you even listening to me? Seeing that I didn't react much, Ji Fan became even angrier. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me, wanting to leave. Come with me. Didn't you always want to marry me? We'll go back and get married. Stop being angry. Love me obediently like you used to. And I'll spare Qin Zhan. Why isn't the female lead saying anything? Is she stunned by Brother Ji's domineering handsomeness? How is that possible? She must be thinking about running away in her heart. This drama is about forced love, so she won't be so obedient. This man is so despicable. When the female lead was running after him, he was extremely annoyed by her. Now that the female lead doesn't love him anymore, he's sticking to her. Those who slandered him before, get out. Make it clear that it was the female lead's mother who first tried to get something in return for her kindness, which led to this engagement for the female lead. Brother Ji really didn't like the female lead in the early days. Is he supposed to sacrifice his whole life just because he was saved by her mother? I couldn't agree more. And the female lead's mother was also very scheming. If she hadn't thought that the Ji family was rich, she wouldn't have jumped into the water to save Brother Ji. So Brother Ji is pitiful. In the early days, the female lead was really submissive and not likable. It's normal for him to dislike her. I thought I had already become numb after experiencing the chaotic lives of the previous 37 times, but when I heard someone say that my mother was scheming, I couldn't help but feel angry. My mother wouldn't have died if it wasn't for saving Ji Fan. She had already escaped from my abusive father with me and found a good job. Our lives were about to get better. She was such a good swimmer, but just because Ji Fan, who was drowning, desperately pressed her underwater, she exhausted her strength. After sending Ji Guifan to the shore, she sank. She didn't even leave me a last word. How could she have tried to get something in return for her kindness? Okay, stop arguing, let's get in the car. The famous scene of having sex in the car is starting. I was stuffed into the car by Ji Guifan. The car door closed. Blocking out Qin Zhan's cries, Ji Guifan leaned over and pressed on me, his eyes deep. Ran, do you know how sad I am? Perhaps because I didn't scold him hysterically like the previous 37 times, Ji Guifan's attitude was much gentler. There was a strong affection in his eyes, and his desire gradually rose. His big hand had lifted the wedding dress and reached under my skirt. You can't marry someone else, you're my fiancé. You're mine, Ran. His lips and tongue wandered on my neck. And the hot breath sprayed on my skin, making me feel disgusted and sticky. The bullet comments scrolled through the screen excitedly. Qin Zhan is watching outside the window, and our brother Ji is pressing the female lead on the chair and having sex with her. So exciting, Ji Guifan, I said softly. Then do you know how much I hate you? Ji Guifan paused in his actions and raised a pair of angry and sad eyes. The next moment, I had already pulled out the hairpin behind my head and stabbed the sharp end into his neck. Blood spurted out, too. The hot and sticky touch was so clear. Ji Guifan's incredulous and terrified expression still remained in front of me. In a flash, I was back at the wedding scene again. The sky was blue, the clouds were white, and the grass was green. The groom, Qin Zhan, smiled and looked at me at the end of the red carpet. The bullet comments scrolled through the screen like crazy. Holy shit, did you all see that just now? Wasn't it my imagination? I saw it. The female lead killed Brother Ji. She stabbed him to death. Goodness me. Isn't the drama I'm watching about the male lead chasing after the female lead and forcing love? Isn't it about her chasing him and him running away and her being unable to escape? How did it turn into a horror scene in the blink of an eye? I remember the original plot wasn't like this. Isn't it supposed to be the famous scene of the male and female leads having sex in the car? Why did the female lead kill the male lead? Mom, it's so eerie. I don't want to watch it anymore. I want to go home. The male lead who forces women to do things deserves to die. The female lead stabbed him well. So satisfying. Don't be too happy yet, those above. Where is the exit button for this video? This rebirth occurred a little earlier than before. Ran, I've finally married you, Ji Ran. But it was only a little earlier. I looked at Ji Guifan at the end of the red carpet indifferently. The female lead's eyes are so scary. She won't try to kill Brother Ji again, will she? No, Brother Ji loves you so much. Isn't it good to go back with him and live the life of a wealthy lady in a wealthy family? Why does she have to kill someone? The female lead is so despicable. Why is she treating the male lead like this? It was clearly her and her mother who first tried to get something in return for their kindness. She was the one who provoked the male lead first. Now that the male lead has fallen in love with her, she's making that stinky face. Is she looking for trouble? That's right. The male lead's biggest mistake is that he's been too kind and good-tempered all these years, spoiling her into what she is now. Is Ji Guifan too kind and good-tempered? Then what about all the torments I've suffered all these years? Is it the retribution from heaven after my mother saved this scumbag? Either we all had an illusion just now, or this drama suddenly went crazy. The plot will definitely be normal next. That's right. That's it. Don't be afraid. Qin Zhan stood in front of me just like the previous 39 times. Today is our wedding. I won't let anyone ruin Qin Zhan. I'm sorry, I pushed him away. Tore off my veil and corsage, and walked straight towards Ji Guifan. Ji Guifan at the end of the red carpet immediately stopped in his tracks, and the violence and gloom between his eyebrows and eyes melted away. He glanced triumphantly at Qin Zhan, who was blocked by the bodyguards behind me, and looked at me with a half-smile. Ji Ran, at least you have some conscience. I didn't say anything, I just stepped forward quickly, and with precision and force, I stabbed the sharp object in my hand into his neck. Ji Guifan's eyes widened in. Ran. I pulled out the hairpin, and blood spurted out from his neck. Under the sunlight, it was as beautiful as a fountain of blood. After a short moment of silence, a series of panicked screams immediately rang out around us. Murder. The bodyguards rushed up and pinned me to the ground. Ji Guifan covered his neck, and his body also slumped down uncontrollably. He looked terrified, in disbelief, dazed and at a loss, as if he couldn't understand how things could have turned out like this. I had clearly walked towards him on my own initiative. I had clearly loved him so much. How could I kill him? In his terrified and confused gaze, I saw myself with blood on my face, and my smile was more carefree than ever before. Holy shit, the female lead killed the male lead again, she's still smiling, my goodness, how can she still smile? Yeah, my brother G, how dare the female lead? How dare she, where the hell is the exit button? I really don't want to watch anymore. Double kill. Congratulations to the female lead for achieving a double kill. The last bullet comment caught my attention, however, before I could take a closer look, Ji fan, unwilling and resentful, took his last breath. When I opened my eyes again, he had changed his clothes and was alive again. Ji ran, I'll give you one more chance. Kneel down and wipe Han Ying's shoes clean. He leaned carelessly on the leather sofa in the private room of the bar, holding a woman in a red dress in his arms, with a haughty and indifferent expression. If you do it, I'll still recognize you as my fiancé. If you don't, get out of the G family. Brother Gue fan, this isn't very appropriate, is it? After all, Sister Ranran has an engagement with you. The woman in the red dress, Jiang Haining, Ji Guifan's childhood sweetheart, pretended to be reluctant and persuaded him. What engagement? I recognize it, and she's my fiancé. If I don't recognize it, Ji Guifan sneered. Those peach blossom eyes that should have been gentle and affectionate were now surging with resentment and jealousy. He enunciated each word clearly. She's a promiscuous and two-faced slut. I remembered. This was 2 months before my wedding with Qin Zhan. Ji Guifan saw me chatting and laughing with Qin Zhan and believed that I was promiscuous and would flirt with any man I saw, so he deliberately humiliated me. In the original life, this was the moment when I completely saw through Ji Guifan's true nature and decided to give up on him. What's going on? Why is the timeline getting earlier each time? Although I'm a fan of the male and female leads as a couple, I have to say that the male lead is really despicable at this time. Just because he saw the female lead chatting with her childhood friend for a while, he wants to humiliate the female lead like this. The male lead has probably changed dozens of bed partners. The male lead is a young master of a wealthy family. It would be strange if a 25-year-old person was still a virgin, right? Then what about the female lead? Does the female lead have to wait for the male lead with her virginity intact? It's precisely the male lead's scumminess and despicability in the early stage that can better set off how satisfying it is when he becomes a lackey for the female lead in the later stage. I like this kind of plot. I like it and I want more. Where's the satisfaction? I only see the female lead's pain and struggle. The male lead really deserves to die. I support the female lead in killing him for the 3rd time. What? You don't want to? Ji Guifan looked at me and smiled, but his eyes had no warmth at all. Do you want to be a housewife for your little childhood friend, Ji Ran? Are you really so inseparable from men? Suddenly, he flew into a rage, stood up, and grabbed my neck, gnashing his teeth and saying, do you still remember that you're my Ji Guifan's fiancé? For fuck's sake, I had difficulty breathing, but I still couldn't help laughing. Ji Guifan, do you know that you're the most despicable person I've ever met in my life? Ji Guifan raised his eyebrows in surprise and said in disbelief, what did you say? I said. I picked up the fruit knife on the fruit plate and stabbed it hard into Ji Guifan's abdomen. Then I pulled it out and stabbed it in again. I said you're a despicable person. A despicable person. Did you ever consider me your fiancé? Do you still remember that my mother died to save you? 3. Ji Guifan covered his wound and stumbled onto the sofa. His childhood sweetheart, his close friends, and the hostesses in the bar all let out a scream and scattered like birds and beasts. Ji Guifan looked in pain, but there was still residual anger on his face. It was clearly you and your mother who tried to get something in return for your kindness. Don't say that to me. I pounced on him and stabbed him with another knife. Then I held the handle of the knife and twisted it hard. The engagement between you and me was insisted on by your parents. My mother died saving you. I was only 7 years old at that time. Could a 7-year-old child coerce your G family into arranging an engagement between me and you? What's more, don't you know exactly what kind of life I've lived all these years? What kind of fiancé am I? I'm clearly a dog that your G family raised for you. In Ji Guifan's wide, terrified eyes, I saw myself, covered in blood and looking frenzied. If it weren't for you, my mother wouldn't have died at all. She was such a good swimmer. It was you who pushed her underwater again and again. Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell. I lost count of how many times I stabbed him. I just felt an unprecedented sense of relief. The resentment and indignation that had been pent up for so many years had finally found an outlet to pour out. In the end, Ji Guifan lay on the sofa with his eyes wide open. The part below his neck was a mass of blood and flesh, and it was impossible to tell it was a human shape. I was completely drained of strength and slumped down in a pool of blood, laughing with great satisfaction. The The bullet comments that had briefly paused started scrolling like crazy again. Some people thought I was too heartless, some were scared by me, some people thought I was quite patient to hold on until now before going crazy. There were also those who felt sorry for Jigue fan and cursed me wildly. I didn't care about any of it. I just stared intently at the bullet comments, until finally, another bullet comment popped up. Triple kill. Congratulations to the female lead for achieving a triple kill. I didn't close my eyes. I watched as the scene in front of me twisted and changed, and in an instant, it became the grand hall of the G family's villa. The clothes were fragrant, the women's hair was styled beautifully, there were numerous guests, and the music was melodious. This was 3 years ago. It was Ji Guifan's mother's 50th birthday banquet. Before I could snap out of the exhilaration of killing Ji Guifan with my own hands, the 22-year-old Ji Guifan suddenly rushed out and pulled me away. He walked quickly and urgently, and I couldn't keep up at all. I instinctively struggled. Ji Guifan suddenly turned around, his eyes bloodshot. Ji ran. Is this what you want? Do you even know what shame is? His words were confusing, but I understood. He had been drugged. It was an aphrodisiac secretly administered to him by the sworn enemy of the Ji family. The intention was to create a scandal and shame the Ji family. As a result, Ji Guifan mistakenly thought that I was the one who had drugged him and took me to the room and raped me, even though more than 30 lifetimes had passed. Just thinking about that night's experience made me feel terrified, and Ji Guifan is not human at all. He's just a rutting beast. After that night, I fainted for a full 3 days. As soon as I woke up, I faced the harsh scolding of the entire Ji family. I always knew you were a restless one, but I never expected you to be so bold as to drug Guifan directly at the banquet. Do you know how strong that drug is? It could have hurt Guifan's body. We raised you so big, not for you to bite the hand that feeds you. I said it wasn't me, that I didn't drug Ji Guifan, that I didn't know anything about it at all, and that it was Ji Guifan who raped me. Ji's mother scolded me. Who else should we blame if not you? You're Guifan's fiancé. Isn't that what we keep you for? Still talking about being raped, pretending to be a chaste and heroic woman. You dared to drug him, but you don't dare to take responsibility. No one was willing to listen to my explanation. Everyone, just like Ji Guifan, believed that I was a scheming woman who coveted wealth and glory, afraid that Ji Guifan wouldn't marry me. I was trying to force the issue at the birthday banquet and make them fulfill the engagement and marry me into the family. I was punished by being put in confinement. A high fever led to pneumonia, and I almost died. Later, when the truth came out and they realized that I wasn't the one who had drugged him, they just casually said, "So it wasn't you, then why didn't you say so earlier?" Ji Guifan didn't show the slightest bit of remorse. Instead, he said jokingly, "Well, you made a profit then. Ran, if I hadn't been drugged by mistake, I might never have touched you in my life." Not only did he not apologize, he didn't even admit to wrongly accusing me. "Since you want it, I'll satisfy you." Ji Guifan's breath, reeking of alcohol, sprayed on my face. His turbid eyes, stained by wine and debauchery, were full of animalistic desire. Stop killing, stop killing. Although the male lead really deserves to die at this moment, but female lead baby, you don't want to be trapped in the loop forever, right? Only by following the original plot can you truly get out of the loop. Female lead, even if I'm begging you, really stop killing. This world revolves around the male lead. Only by obediently following the original plot will the female lead gain happiness. Why doesn't she understand that? Happiness. Ever since my mother drowned while saving Ji Guifan, I've no longer had the ability to feel true happiness. Ji Guifan is the source of all my pain in this life. As long as he's alive, I'll never be able to be truly happy. Moreover, haven't I tried following the original plot? Whether I'm gentle and submissive or fiercely resistant, as long as Ji Guifan is around, I always end up with a bad outcome. I remember this plot was also very cruel. The female lead fainted for 3 days for the first time and was wrongly accused of drugging someone. She was put in confinement, had a high fever that led to pneumonia, and almost died. Our brother G didn't know the truth either. Female lead, can't you talk to him properly? That's right. At this time, he already has feelings for you in his heart. He just can't accept that the person he likes is scheming against him like this. If you talk to him properly, the result this time will definitely be different from before. I suppressed the urge to vomit and lowered my head meekly and timidly. The bullet comments were filled with joy and excitement. Thank goodness, the female lead is finally willing to make a change. Ji Guifan snorted coldly and dragged me straight upstairs. I casually took a dinner knife from the dining table and hid it in the sleeve of my dress against my skin. Wait a minute. No, did I see it wrong? As soon as we entered the door, Ji Guifan threw me onto the bed and then pounced on me eagerly. Ji Ran, how old are you and already so lustful? Are you so afraid that I won't marry you that you're willing to drug me just to tie yourself to me? Is this your love for me? Ji Ran, fine, I'll grant you your wish. The dinner knife pierced through the fabric of his suit and stabbed into his lower body without a sound. Perhaps the pain comes more slowly to someone who has been drugged with a powerful aphrodisiac. It wasn't until the blood from my second stab splattered on my face that Ji Guifan realized it was his own blood, not the blush on my face, for, the pain came crashing down, and he involuntarily arched his body, like a shrimp with its intestines removed. Ji Ran, are you crazy? The bullet comments were equally in a state of collapse. Didn't you say you would talk properly? Why are you stabbing him again? Talk properly. Why should I talk properly to a beast? He doesn't understand human language anyway, and it would just be a waste of my breath, but I was still in a good mood and replied to Ji Guifan's words, I'm not crazy, I'm just fighting back against a rapist who has lost his humanity. Ji Guifan was twitching in pain and curled up into a ball. His face was as red as if it were, his eyes filled with shock, anger, resentment, and more than anything, confusion and bewilderment. A rapist, after understanding the meaning of the word. He became angry. Ji Ran, get it straight, it was clearly you who drugged me. No, if I really drugged you, it would only be rat poison, not an aphrodisiac. Even in such intense pain, Ji Guifan's expression showed a brief moment of blankness. He really couldn't understand the deep-seated hatred I had for him. The Ji family had been kind to me. I had been his fiancée since I was a child. Whether I truly loved him or loved the Ji family's wealth and power, it was always my own choice. How could I hate him so much that I wanted to kill him? Ji Ran, no, you're not Ji Ran. He dragged his body, which was on the verge of fainting from the pain, off the bed and crawled towards the door. Somebody, help. But just like in the original life, when I was being tortured under Ji Guifan and desperately calling for help with no response, this time Ji Guifan's cries for help also went unanswered. I lightly jumped off the bed and locked the door from the inside. Ji Guifan. Why did you think it was me who gave you the aphrodisiac? I had wanted the answer to this question for so long. All these years in the Ji family, I was nominally your fiancé, but in reality, wasn't I just a personal nanny that your parents raised for you? No, a nanny has human rights, a salary, and holidays. I'm different. I squatted down and tapped his face with the blood-stained dinner knife one by one. I not only had to be at your beck and call, but I also had to endure all kinds of humiliation from you and your cronies, deliberately pushing me into the water, ordering me to go halfway across the city to buy mung bean cakes and then not eating them, making me cook chicken soup for your beloved childhood sweetheart. That's all fine. Deleting the contract, causing me to mess up the company project and owe $1,000,000 in debt, snatching away the precious sponsorship spot igot, making me take the blame for your cheating crony, and getting me a major demerit, one after another. Ji Guifan, do you know how long I've remembered these things and how long I've hated you? Although I used to ship the male and female leads, well, I can't do it anymore now. I support the female lead in killing this scumbag. Brother Ji was a bit mischievous, but the female lead really did live a wealthy life in the Ji family all these years, and Brother Ji didn't like the female lead before, with his status. What kind of woman couldn't he find? It's not like he was tied to a country bumpkin girl from the countryside since he was a child. He was too, you know. Ji Guifan covered his wound and gasped for breath with difficulty. I admit, I really did these things wrong, but Ran, you also have to understand me. Having a fiancé out of the blue, I wasn't exactly happy about it either. I slashed his face with a knife. Did I force your parents to arrange this engagement for us with a knife? Ji Guifan, have you forgotten that I was only 7 years old when my mother drowned saving you? The tip of the knife approached Ji Guifan's eyes, and only then did fear spread in his eyes. It was your parents who arranged the engagement between me and you in order to have a good reputation for the company. You never even asked about my true wishes. I don't want a goddamn fiancé at all. I scratched his face fiercely. I want my mother. I want my living mother. Ji Guifan. Give me back my mother. No, the tip of the knife stabbed deeply into his eye socket, and I heard a scream that was extremely satisfying. The female lead is so ruthless, but why do I feel kind of satisfied? My brother Ji, don't struggle. Those above, anyway, we can't exit, otherwise, let's look at it from the female lead's perspective and treat it as a revenge story that makes people feel great. I didn't let Ji Guifan die as easily as the previous 3 times, even if he was blind. He still had his hands, even if his hands were broken, he still had his feet, the blood flowed bit by bit, He was in so much pain that he didn't have the strength to scream. When the dinner knife finally stabbed into his neck, I even saw a look of relief on his face. Quadra-kill. Congratulations to the female lead for achieving a quadra-kill. This time, it was 7 years ago. Ji-Gue-fan and I were 18 years old and in our senior year of high school. Am I going to search your school bag myself? Or are you going to hand over that necklace voluntarily? The 18-year-old Ji-Gue-fan had a youthful look in his eyes and brows, but that annoying air of contempt and arrogance seemed to be innate, firmly taking root between his eyebrows. What's going on now? I know. The supporting female character, Jiang Haining, suspects that the female lead stole her necklace and is here to demand an explanation. The male lead knew that Jiang Haining didn't like the female lead, so to please her, he directly bought an identical necklace and put it in the female lead's school bag. No. What does that mean? Deliberately torturing the female lead. You guys upstairs just found out. This drama has been torturing the female lead from beginning to end, but now our female lead has risen up and can knock down the male lead and the supporting female character in no time. I ignored the unruly Ji-Gue-fan. I looked around and, as expected, saw the looks of disdain or contempt from everyone. What a pity. This was the classroom, and there were no convenient weapons at hand. I wondered if a ballpoint pen could pierce through Ji-Gue-fan's neck. Just as I was worrying, I reached into my school bag and felt it. Immediately, I was overjoyed. How could I have forgotten? During my high school days, I had a serious self-destructive tendency and often carried a small knife with me. Ji-Gue-fan, I smiled at him. Can you come over here? I'll give you the necklace. Ji-Gue-fan was taken aback, and his sword-like eyebrows furrowed even deeper. But he still came over and said impatiently, what trick are you playing this time? I pulled out the small knife and slashed at his neck with all my might. Ji-Gue-fan had no precautions against me, a lackey who had always followed him since childhood, submissive, cowardly, and as soft-tempered as cotton. He couldn't have imagined that I would resist. He couldn't have imagined that I would go for the big move right from the start, directly cutting his throat with a knife. Ji-Gue-fan covered his neck, which was spurting blood, and stepped back. Ji ran. Jiang Haining supported him and screamed in horror. Are you crazy? The classmates who were watching the commotion around us were immediately scared and scattered in all directions. Ji ran. I took out the diamond necklace that was said to be worth tens of thousands of yuan from my school bag and threw it at his feet. Ji-Gue-fan, you put this necklace in my school bag, right? Ji-Gue-fan opened his mouth futilely, but could only make a strange hoarse sound. I really can't figure you out. I sighed and casually picked up a glass on the table and smashed it, ignoring the cut on my palm. I held the sharp shard in my hand. Jiang Haining was so scared that she screamed. She didn't care about Ji-Gue-fan anymore and crawled out in a panic. Ji-Gue-fan fell to the ground and looked at me in horror. What on earth did I do to offend you that you keep torturing me one way after another? My mother saved you, not harmed you, right? I crouched down in front of Ji-Gue-fan, forcefully stabbed the sharp end of the shard into his chest, and then smiled brightly at him. See you later, Ji-Gue-fan. Ji-Gue-fan's pupils dilated, and fear and despair welled up from the depths of his eyes. In an instant, he stopped breathing, so satisfying, unstoppable. Congratulations to the female lead for achieving a pentakill, you country bumpkin. I will never admit that you are my fiancé. I opened my eyes and saw Ji-Gue-fan, who was 9 years old, with an angry and flushed face. People like you aren't even worthy of holding my shoes. What right do you have to be my fiancé? I'm telling you. Don't think that just because you saved me and my parents are protecting you, you will definitely marry me in the future. I'd rather marry a pig than you. Wow, 9-year-old brother G, so cute. How could the female lead bear to do it? Yeah, and he's still so young. None of those previous harms have happened yet. He's just an adorable little boy now. Female lead, if you teach him well, he will definitely change for the better. What are you staring at me for? Ji-Gue-fan suddenly rushed over and pushed me hard. Don't you dare look at me like that. My 9-year-old body was still too small, and I was a bit unskilled. When I fell to the ground, I realized that my legs were covered in scars, and there were bandages on the serious parts. I remembered, the 9-year-old Ji-Gue-fan had a mischievous personality. He had a dispute with his father and mother because he didn't want me as his fiancé. He ran away from home at such a young age. As soon as he left the villa area, he was almost hit by a car. I rushed over and saved him, scraping my legs in the process. Ran, you have to remember that if you want to stay in this family, you have to make Gue-fan like you. You are Gue-fan's fiancé. You should use everything you have to accompany him and protect him. This is the responsibility of a fiancé. Gue-fan's life was saved by your mother. That means your mother's life was exchanged for his. You don't want the person your mother risked her life to save to get hurt, do you? Ji Guifan's parents brainwashed me into giving everything for Ji Guifan, so even though I was extremely scared when the car came crashing towards us, I still chose to rush out and save Ji Guifan, but he didn't appreciate it. Just like now, he looked viciously at the injuries on my legs and raised his foot to kick me. I don't care that you saved me. Even if you hadn't saved me, that person wouldn't have dared to hit me. I'm the young master of the Ji family. Before his kick landed on my wound, I got up and charged at him. Coincidentally, there was a swimming pool right behind him. Ji Guifan fell into the water unexpectedly and opened his mouth to scold me. Ji ran, you gurgle gurgle gurgle. Ji Guifan didn't learn how to swim until he was 14 years old. He struggled in the water and called for help. His gaze gradually changed from anger to fear, but this time, no one would come to save him. I don't know how long it took. Ji Guifan's body sank. He was dead. I looked at the bullet comments still scrolling in the air. Godlike. Congratulations to the female lead for achieving a hexakill. Why are there so many people ahead? A gentle female voice that I hadn't heard for a long time sounded in my ear. I opened my eyes, carefully raised my head, and looked at the person. Short, neat hair that reached the ears, a thin and determined face, gentle eyes and eyebrows that habitually carried a hint of sadness. Mom, it was Mom. Finally, I finally saw Mom again. Ran, you wait here for Mom. There's a big brother who fell into the water over there, and Mom is going to save him. No, my heart started beating violently. I clung tightly to my mother's arm, almost wrapping myself around her with my hands and feet. No, don't go, you'll die. Mom, don't go. Don't leave me alone. We've finally managed to live a good life. Don't leave me. Don't, I cried heart-wrenchingly, my heart breaking, not caring about anything else. There was only one thought in my heart and eyes, and that was to stop my mother from saving Ji Guifan. The one who deserved to die was never my mother, it was Ji Guifan. Ji Guifan was a jinx, a bad luck charm. Whoever got involved with him would be plagued by bad luck for a lifetime. What's wrong? Ran, Mom is here. Mom is okay. Don't cry, don't cry. My mother crouched down and hugged me into her arms. Ran, don't scare Mom. Mom is fine. Mom won't go then. But my tears still wouldn't stop. I had lost count of how many years it had been since I last saw my mother. Ever since she died saving Ji Guifan, there had been no glimmer of light in my life. I had struggled in the darkness named Ji Guifan for so many years. This was my 38th rebirth. I seemed to want to vent out all the grievances of the previous 40-something lifetimes. I actually cried myself into a faint in my mother's arms. This time, my mother didn't care about Ji Guifan who had fallen into the water anymore. She picked me up and rushed to the hospital. When I woke up again, my mother was by my side, and on the TV, the news of the drowning death of the only son of the Ji family, the richest family in the area, was being broadcast. Ji Guifan's parents were heartbroken by the river. Congratulations to the female lead. You have successfully achieved the feat of reversing your life. Next, please enjoy your own life to the fullest. The bullet comments disappeared. Ran. When my mother noticed that I was awake, she quickly pressed the bell to call the doctor and then approached with red and swollen eyes. How do you feel? I held her hand, sniffed the unique smell of my mother on her body, and felt the warmth emanating from her. My heart was more at peace than ever before. I feel extremely good. I wrapped my arms around her neck, as if holding a treasure that I had lost and found again. Mom, I love you so much. Story 2. My boyfriend spent his whole life creating a time machine. He used it to go back and try to save his first love. I secretly followed him back in time. There, I saw him, whom I had taught bit by bit how to love, tenderly holding his first love's hand, saying, I didn't know how to love before, and I hurt you. Now, I've learned. The day after we returned from the past, I met Liang Su at Xia Qingxuan's birthday party. He appeared with a cake he made himself and carefully selected gifts. Under the gentle light of the flickering candles, his gaze was deep and affectionate. The atmosphere reached its peak, ambiguous and charged, as everyone gathered around waiting for Xia Qingxuan to make a wish and blow out the candles. Then, they playfully urged the couple to kiss. I stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, watching Xia Qingxuan, holding roses, coyly tiptoed to kiss Liang Su on the cheek. My roommate introduced him to me. That's Xia Qingxuan's boyfriend. Isn't he handsome? Not only that, but he's also very considerate, gentle, attentive, and always maintains a respectful distance with women. Simply perfect. Silently, I watched as Liang Su gently tucked a stray hair behind Xia Qingxuan's ear, his eyes smiling. I turned away and quietly replied to my friend, he truly is mature and reliable. good at taking care of others, after all. I had spent 5 years teaching him that, little by little, the original Liang Su wasn't like this at all. He was bad-tempered, impatient, impulsive, irritable, and arrogant. His relationship with Xia Qingxuan, which lasted less than 2 years, ended when she vented all her frustrations and fell in love with his friend. Liang Su couldn't accept that, so he spent years creating a time machine, learned how to love as I had taught him, and without hesitation, left me behind to go back to the time when he had just started dating Xia Qingxuan in their sophomore year, even though just one more day would have marked our 5th anniversary, but he couldn't wait. Now, we are strangers who don't recognize each other. At the party, Xia Qingxuan was the center of attention, and the conversation revolved around her and Liang Su. Someone asked her how she managed to find such a perfect boyfriend. Others inquired if Liang Su had any equally handsome friends. Even jokingly, someone half-seriously said, "Ever heard the saying, one generation plants the trees, another gets the shade? Liang Su is so considerate and attentive, surely an ex-girlfriend taught him all that." Hearing this, Liang Su didn't seem upset, he just smiled lightly and then, taking Xia Qingxuan's hand as if making a confession or a promise, said, "There is no ex, Qingxuan is my first love, and my only love." Of course, he had no ex because it was only a year after they broke up that I started dating Liang Su. I was not the past, but the future, yet, that didn't stop him from applying everything I taught him about love to Xia Qingxuan. In the dimly lit room, the crowd buzzed, so he never saw me standing in the corner the whole time. It was only after the cake was cut, and Xia Qingxuan was introducing friends to him, that Liang Su stood before me, our eyes meeting. I can't describe the look on his face when he saw me. The smile freezing on his lips, a flicker of confusion in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. Then, as Xia Qingxuan introduced me saying, "This is Yu Xing, my classmate," he stared at me, lost in thought. I maintained a polite smile, watching Xia Qingxuan tug at his sleeve and frown inquiringly. "Do you know each other?" Liang Su then regained his senses and handed me a piece of cake, saying coldly and distantly, "No, we don't know each other." I sat with the cake on a single sofa, looking towards Liang Su, who had returned to the center of the crowd. Under the flickering lights, tall and with intense features, he was indeed breathtakingly handsome, especially his eyes, deep and earnest, always seemed innocent and passionate when he looked intently at someone. So, during the 5 years we were together, no matter how angry or sad I was, just seeing his face, just him quietly looking at me and softly calling, "Xing Xing," I would instantly surrender. It was easy for me to forgive him. The little cake in my hand gave off a faint scent of orange blossom. My roommate, biting on a spoon, mumbled, "Yu Xing, you must try this. It's incredibly delicious." He really put his heart into it. Now, I have to add another criterion to my boyfriend's standards. I curved my lips into a smile and took a small bite. It was a familiar taste. It was the one I taught Liang Su to make. I had spent half a month patiently helping him, guiding him step by step as he tried over and over again until he learned. He looked at me earnestly and said, "Yu Xing, once I've mastered this, I'll bake a cake for you with my own hands every birthday." Later, he did learn how to make it, but he never made it for me, not even once. In fact, in the previous life's trajectory, my first encounter with Liang Su wasn't at this birthday party. I wasn't actually close to Xia Qingxuan. She had invited the whole class to her birthday party. I wasn't planning to go, but my roommate dragged me along to join the fun, so I left early after giving my gift and well wishes in the previous life. Thus, I missed Liang Su, who arrived late. That night, back in the dorm, my roommates mentioned him. "Yu Xing, you left early and didn't see Xia Qingxuan's boyfriend. He's extremely handsome. Too bad he seemed aloof and impatient throughout the party." Putting aside their personalities, they do match well in terms of looks. I wasn't particularly curious and generally uninterested in other people's affairs, let alone some other girl's boyfriend, so, after listening, I just smiled indifferently and didn't pursue the matter further, nor did I ask for his name. It was only later, after I got together with Liang Su for a short time, that I accidentally saw a photo in his study and realized he was the handsome guy I had missed at the party, Xia Qingxuan's boyfriend. But I didn't mind. After all, who doesn't have a past? However, now, we have returned to the past. Unlike the previous life, this time, almost everyone was praising Liang Su. Perhaps it was the jubilant atmosphere around them that made the corner where I sat seem a bit lonely. With a mix of indescribable emotions, I unconsciously drank a few more glasses of fruit wine, slightly tipsy. I couldn't distinguish whether the crossing was real or not, so I went out to the terrace to get some fresh air for a long time. When I came back sober, the crowd had already dispersed. As I touched the half-closed door of the private room, I saw Liang-su kneeling in front of Xia Qingxuan, who had collapsed on the sofa, gently holding her hand and saying, "I didn't know how to love before and hurt your heart, but now I've learned." I have to admit, Liang-su, who has a high talent for learning, can master anything he sets his mind to. 3. So, after that birthday party, I frequently heard about all the things Liang-su did for Xia Qingxuan, like bringing her a rose every time he came to see her, peeling shrimp and picking out fish bones for her at dinners, and even making handmade gifts to create little romantic moments. Oh, he would occasionally come to accompany Xia Qingxuan to class, and since coming back through time, our only interaction was at Xia Qingxuan's birthday party, and then there was today, my roommate and Xia Qingxuan, who are in the same guitar club, were going for a team-building hike, and she pleaded with me to come along to take photos. Yuxing, please, I absolutely love your composition, lighting, and color style. I'll treat you to a big meal when we get back. I agreed after her persistent coaxing. Then, carrying my camera, I arrived at the meeting point with her and saw Liang-su, who had come to accompany Xia Qingxuan. He was dressed in a black and white sports outfit, slightly bowing his head. Listening intently to Xia Qingxuan, it seemed my gaze lingered on him long enough for him to notice. Before he turned his head to look over, I calmly shifted my gaze away. My roommate exaggeratedly introduced my photography skills to her companions. Yuxing, a self-taught master of photography, unmatched in lighting, top-notch composition, amused by her, I politely addressed the smiling classmates. Amateur player. If anyone needs help, I can take pictures for you, I offered. During the trip that followed, people kept offering me small snacks in exchange for taking photos for them. It wasn't until Xia Qingxuan, pulling along Liang-su, came over with a smile and asked, "Yuxing, could you take a picture of us too?" I held my camera and nodded with a smile, finding a good spot to frame them. But before I could press the shutter, I heard my roommate loudly asking from the side, "Liang-su, why aren't you smiling? Look here at Yuxing and smile," he said, silently. I waited for Liang-su to muster a stiff smile, and quickly snapped a few shots. Later, on the way back, we sat together on the bus looking through the photos, receiving polite and joyful compliments from everyone. Finally, we came across a few shots taken by my roommate. They were quite good, except one focused unintentionally on a passerby who walked behind me. He was a young man in a black hoodie and gray pants, his bangs hidden under a hood. Amid the laughter, someone suddenly pointed at the photo and said, "There's a saying online, isn't there? You two didn't know each other, yet you were captured in the same frame. Could it be that in another universe, you really knew each other?" After hearing that, the smile on my face slowly faded. He was right. In a past life, I did know this young man. His name was Chen Jingji, my first love. It's been a very long time since I last saw him, since he died on our second anniversary. It seems like my life has been forever paused at the day of his death, stuck in limbo, suspended in mid-air. Now, as time seems to rewind, we have yet to meet. My drifting thoughts were suddenly pulled back by a sharp break, causing the camera to slip from my hands, but it was swiftly caught by Liang-su in front of me. After calming my nerves, I turned to thank him, only to find him frowning deeply at the photo. The next second, my roommate peered over, and a surprised voice unexpectedly exclaimed, "Liang-su, he looks a lot like you." I didn't know what Liang-su thought in the moment his fingers tensed, but he was indeed a stand-in. About my relationship with Liang-su, it was actually his idea, but I know better than anyone that Liang-su is not Chen Jingji, no matter how similar they appear. So initially, I was with him out of a sense of guilt and apology, simply wanting to see his face. It wasn't until I accidentally learned that his first love was Xia Qingxuan, and heard him drunkenly say, "When I learn how to love someone, I will come to you," that I realized what he meant when he said to me, "I don't know how to love. Can you teach me how to love you?" He didn't love me. It was a relationship of mutual convenience. So, I began to justify using him as a stand-in. I started teaching him how to love me the way Chen Jingji did. I finally understood why in most fantasy dramas, after the protagonist's lover dies, a mere illusion can trap them, even knowing it's not their true lover. They're willing to indulge in the illusion. I also became painfully aware that this was undoubtedly drinking poison to quench thirst, but fate had it that when I was about to give up, I saw scattered documents in his study about wormholes, black holes, the speed of light, time reversal, and time travelers, and a note seemingly scribbled down, "Travelers can only travel back to their own past bodies." In that moment, my heart raced. and an incredible conjecture surfaced in my mind. Being with Liang Su after, the most profound impression he left on me wasn't his inability to love, but his intelligence, an extreme form of it, walls full of certificates and trophies, and the title of a genius in the physics department, all highlighted his smooth and brilliant path, but also gave him a bit of arrogance. He didn't know how to humble himself to love someone in a relationship, until he broke up with Xia Qingxuan. That was probably the only problem he faced that he couldn't solve. So he obsessively sought every possible method to find the answer, and then went back to conquer it. Honestly, I don't know if Liang Su's obsession was with the unattainable Xia Qingxuan, or the only failure in his life path, or if he really was, as I suspected, attempting to reverse time and travel back. I had no idea if he could actually succeed, but what if he could? So I pretended to know nothing and continued to be with him, year after year, surpassing the time he had spent with Xia Qingxuan, as well as the time I had been with Chen Jingji, until the day before our 5th anniversary. I called him. Liang Su, let's talk when you get back. I wanted to break up. Unexpectedly, he was silent for a long time on the other end of the phone. Then softly said, Yu Xing, I might not be able to spend our 5th anniversary with you. I'm sorry. Before I could respond, the call was disconnected. Holding the phone, I stood still for a few seconds before suddenly realizing what he meant. Almost without hesitation, I rushed to his now deserted laboratory. Then, we became strangers from lovers. He turned in a perfect score, becoming everyone's idea of an ideal boyfriend. I also had the opportunity to save Chen Jingji and alter his doomed fate. Just as I never cared about Liang Su's past with Xia Qingxuan, he didn't care whom I had been with either. So I think, regarding Chen Jingji being my first love, Liang Su would never know. Eventually, the camera was handed back to me. Liang Su said nothing, just silently looked out the window. I couldn't pay attention to anything else. My eyes fixed on the photo, my mind filled with Chen Jingji, suddenly realizing something. Even though I tried to maintain the development of the previous life, waiting for our first meeting on the basketball court, today's trajectory has still deviated due to one small change after another, like this photo of him, like the next day in a public class, when he sat next to me. I heard it said that music and sense are carriers of memory. Indeed, they are, because the moment Chen Jingji sat down, the familiar scent of light orange struck my heart faster than any of my reactions. Bringing forth a fine, lingering pain, I sat stiffly at the desk, letting memories surge like tide, interwoven romantic scenes, vivid fragments of interactions, until the second before the car accident, when he turned the steering wheel towards me. Then he died in front of me. At the time I loved him the most. Interrupting my thoughts was the teacher's question, who called my name in the silent classroom. I stood up, half a beat slow, unable to answer a word, because I hadn't been listening. I remembered this teacher, famously in the college for picking on students who couldn't answer and having others help them. So, after half a minute of my silence, she glanced over the bowed heads and asked deliberately, "Is there any student willing to help answer?" At that moment, I hadn't fully awakened from the sad memories and actually felt it might be better if no one stood up. I could keep standing, and while looking down, I could always see Chen Jingji next to me from the corner of my eye. Without him noticing, his slender fingers rested on a black pen, casually flipping a book. Then suddenly, he stood up and said loudly, "I will." In my astonishment, as he rose, my drooping head gradually turned to a side glance, but what surprised me more was the teacher, adjusting her glasses and looking up to ask, "Is the boy in the back also helping to answer?" Chen Jingji and I turned around at the same time to see, 2 rows back, Liang Su, who had come to class with Xia Qingxuan, also standing up. For a moment, countless gazes fell on him. He didn't look at me, just calmly said, "No, I'm going to the restroom." So, it was Chen Jingji who stepped in to help me. After sitting down, as I turned to thank him, he suddenly leaned close and whispered softly, "Classmate, your eyes are so red, surely you haven't been crying. It's just a question you couldn't answer. No need to cry." When he suddenly came close, I was stunned for a moment before slowly realizing what was happening. Yet I didn't tell him that the sour redness in my eyes wasn't because I couldn't answer the question. Later, under the guise of expressing my thanks, I invited him to dinner. After class, I took him to a beef noodle shop nearby and effortlessly ordered from the lady owner 2 bowls of beef noodles, no green onions for both. Turning around, I saw Chen Jingji looking at me with a half smile. He asked, "How did you know I don't like green onions either?" I was momentarily at a loss for words, unsure how to explain when I heard him continue, "Although I don't know who you were thinking of when you placed the order, and so accidentally revealed your preference, I still should introduce myself properly. With that, he extended his right hand towards me, looking earnestly as he introduced himself. Hello, Yu Xing. I'm a first-year graduate student in the medical department at University A, Chenjingji. I knew he was from the neighboring University A and that he was actually substituting for a friend. This beef noodle shop, located between the two universities, was the place we most frequently visited in our past life together. Although it has been a long time, I still vividly remember our last visit here, which was 2 weeks after Chen Jingji left. Psychology has a term called emotional insulation defense mechanism, which prevents the brain from collapsing in the face of extreme sadness and pain. So initially, when faced with Chen Jingji's death, and the fact that I would never see him or hear his voice again, I felt numb and unemotional. Looking at the gray photo on the tombstone, I didn't shed a tear, only finding myself sleepless on quiet nights, vividly recalling every past moment. It was during an ordinary evening when I came to this noodle shop and habitually ordered 2 bowls of beef noodles without green onions. Then, as the noodles were served, and I looked at the empty seat across from me, tears unexpectedly started to fall. The emotions that had been sealed off seemed to suddenly tear open, followed by pain spreading from my heart to my entire body, and unstoppable tears. After forcing myself to finish the bowl of noodles, I ended up vomiting everything out in my overwhelming grief. Since then, I hadn't returned to this noodle shop. Fortunately, now back at the beginning, the car accident hadn't happened yet, Chen Jingji hadn't died, and everything could still be salvaged. Looking at the hand in front of me, I gently grasped it and earnestly explained, I wasn't thinking of anyone, it's just my preference. I misspoke about the 2 bowls. He tilted his head and laughed. That's quite a coincidence. From now on, it will always be 2 bowls then. In the end, Chen Jingji paid the bill. As I looked on in surprise, he smiled and handed his phone over. In public, it wouldn't be gentlemanly of me to let a girl pay. How about this? Add me on WeChat, and you can transfer to me. I added him on WeChat and sent the money, but he returned it, saying, it doesn't make sense for a girl to treat on the first meal. How about you do me a favor instead? They had a community medical event coming up, and he asked me to help take photos. A week later, I followed him with my camera to the nearby community, capturing their medical consultations. In the photos, Chen Jingji patiently answered the residents' questions, measured blood pressure and blood sugar for the elderly, and chatted with the children. The noon sunlight fell on his white coat, coating him in a gentle glow, dazzling yet tender. If Liangsu was an unattainable flower on a high cliff, then Chen Jingji was like a grand, warm autumn sun. They were never the same. As the medical event neared its end, and everyone was chatting with the elderly and children, I saw Chen Jingji surrounded by a group of kids, helping them make bamboo joint figures. Amidst the chirping calls of Brother Jingji, he bowed his head, his fingers deftly threading and tying knots, then handing them out one by one. This one's for you, Yuan Yuan. This one is for little Tong Tong. This one is for little Daodu. I casually snapped a few photos, and while flipping through them, I suddenly heard Chen Jingji's voice. Looking up, I saw him handing me a beautifully crafted bamboo figurine, jokingly saying, here, everyone who sees this gets a share. This one is for little Xingxing. Over time, through several encounters, Chen Jingji and I became friends who could arrange to have meals together. He would help me campaign for votes in the most beautiful sunset photography competition. And when we went to play with clay together, he would seriously mold various human organs. Then, when the couple across from us finally managed to shape a pair of standard hearts, he lifted the heart he had made and said, look, this is a perfect heart. I put down the scattered limbs in my hands, smiled awkwardly at the speechless couple across from us, and pulled Chen Jingji to another table. He would also take me to meet his fellow disciples. Pointing at those who had taken off their white lab coats, he introduced each one to me. Looking at those familiar faces, I greeted them politely. I remember that the gentle and graceful senior sister, once out of her lab coat, transformed into a cool and dashing motorcyclist, and the calm and collected senior brother was actually a big shot in the esports world. As for their reaction to my arrival, and Chen Jingji's introduction of me as my friend Yuxing, they all looked at me with a smile and a knowing "oh" in their eyes. Honestly, they didn't say much, but their expressions seemed to say it all. My cheeks warmed under their gaze, and Chen Jingji stepped in front of me, pleadingly saying, senior brothers and sisters, please be gentle, don't scare her. They continued to smile warmly at me, chin in hand. Sure, just call us senior brother and senior sister, and we'll all be family. Later on, I became friends with them too. joining them for script murder games and attending music festivals organized by various universities. I immersed myself in this lively and stable life, almost forgetting that I had traveled back in time, until I met Liang-su again. It was probably because all my attention and thoughts had been focused on Chen Jingji lately, and I automatically blocked out my roommate's gossip at the dorm, so when I saw Liang-su, I suddenly realized that it had been a long time since I last heard his name. One summer evening, while playing Truth or Dare at an outdoor barbecue stand with Chen Jingji and his seniors, I suddenly felt a strong gaze on me. Instinctively looking sideways, I caught Liang-su's eyes. He was sitting at another table with Xia Qingyu and another couple. Deliberately, Xia Qingyu held Liang-su's hand, talking nonstop, then laughed heartily at something, while the man across from her had a tight face and pursed lips. The atmosphere was harmonious, yet strangely tense. The gaze that Liang-su cast on me felt like thorns on my back, but fortunately, the displeased man across from Xia Qingyu suddenly stood up and said he wouldn't eat anymore. They left. I held the goose leg that Chen Jingji handed to me, hearing Xia Qingyu leaning on Liang-su, slightly drunk, saying as they walked, "Liang-su, I like you the most." As they passed by us, my gaze lightly swept over them, noticing that Xia Qingyu's actions and words indeed showed she liked him a lot. But he did not seem happy. This puzzle was soon answered. Xia Qingyu broke up with him. A roommate in the guitar club sighed regretfully during our nightly gossip session. "Did you all know? Xia Qingyu and Liang-su broke up." My pen stopped abruptly, and I suddenly remembered a night in a previous life when a roommate mentioned that Xia Qingyu and her boyfriend had broken up. Back then, she said Xia Qingyu complained that Liang-su didn't know how to love and couldn't stand being with him anymore. Decisively breaking up and soon officially announced a new relationship with a friend of Liang-su. Even though Liang-su had become everyone's ideal boyfriend, I didn't understand why they still broke up. The roommate's answer was that Xia Qingyu felt bored. Liang-su loved her like a robot set to a program, which was very dull. Then the roommate opened her social media to show, "Look, she's already announced her new relationship, and it's with a friend of Liang-su." I stared at the social media post, speechless, recognizing the man who had been displeased at the barbecue stand that night. Then I heard my roommate lower her voice, mysteriously adding, "The real reason is that Xia Qingyu never really liked Liang-su. She was with him only to spite a childhood friend she had a crush on for a long time. She wanted to make him jealous." Yes, that childhood friend is Liang-su's friend, her current boyfriend now. So whether Liang-su could love someone or not, Xia Qingxuan didn't care at all, because they would inevitably break up in the end. And Liang-su, he thought he had found the right answer, only to realize later that the question itself was wrong. Amidst sighs, another roommate asked, "Did Liang-su just agree like that? Didn't he try to win her back? He seemed to really like Xia Qingxuan." "No, I heard he accepted it very calmly and didn't say anything about holding on." I found this somewhat absurd. An instinctive unwillingness to accept this fact, because it made me feel like what was meant to happen would inevitably happen. This feeling reached its peak when I saw Liang-su again a week later. In a large shopping mall downtown, I found a child who had gotten lost from her family and took her to the broadcast station, waiting with her until her mother arrived. A very beautiful and dignified woman dressed in an expensive-looking dark blue cheongsam came over, took the child's hand, and thanked me, inviting me for tea at the tea house downstairs. Despite my repeated refusals, she insisted, citing it would ease her conscience, and led me past a wooden carved screen where I saw Liang-su, dressed in a light gray sweater, pinching a celadon cup at a square table. Memories from a distant past were instantly awakened, although the timing was wrong. In my previous life, my first encounter with Liang-su was because I found this child, but back then, the person who came to the broadcast station to pick up the child was Liang-su. It was his cousin's daughter, who was visiting from abroad. Liang-su's parents were both scientists and were rarely around, so he had grown up mostly alone, indifferent to familial ties. During the 5 years we were together, I hardly ever saw his relatives. Thus, this cousin and her little niece, whom I had only met once, faded from my memory over time, but I hadn't expected that, starting over, a similar situation would occur again, albeit slightly differently. The girl's mother mentioned that she was supposed to meet her cousin here, then explained to Liang-su, "This lady helped find her. Her name is Yu Xing." After she spoke, Liang-su put down his teacup, looked over, and said slowly, "Yeah, I know her." I couldn't describe how I felt at that moment. Upon learning that Liang-su and I were alumni, the girl's mother exclaimed in surprise, "That really is fate." Then, curiously looking between me and Liang-su, she asked, "One in physics, one in Chinese studies." How do you know each other? The room fell silent. I shifted my gaze from the gently swaying irises opposite me and said softly, not really acquaintances. He's a classmate's boyfriend. I've met him once. The next second, Liang-su added, we've broken up. Oh, now he's an ex-boyfriend. Perhaps sensing my lack of enthusiasm, the girl's mother didn't pursue my story further but instead talked with Liang-su. I picked up a pastry, focusing on entertaining the little girl next to me, indifferent to their conversation, until before leaving, I heard the girl's mother ask Liang-su meaningfully, you seem to have changed a lot since coming back, becoming much more reserved. Is it because of that girl you broke up with? He shook his head slightly. No, she didn't like me. And I didn't like her either. Oh, but you seem quite upset. Liang-su was silent for a few seconds, his voice a bit hoarse, because I realized too late that I might have missed someone I truly liked. I didn't know what he meant by that, nor did I want to know, but since then, our encounters started to become more frequent, trapped under the same roof by a heavy rain, eating at the same table in the cafeteria. Even the campus cat that I often fed suddenly appeared at his feet one day. When coincidences become too frequent, they're no longer coincidences, so I reduced how often I went out, stopped eating in the cafeteria, and stopped feeding that orange cat. After a while, Liang-su stood in the corridor I had to pass through in the library, looking puzzled as he asked me, Yu Xing, are you avoiding me? Yes, I indeed was avoiding him. After all, starting over. There was no relationship between me and him anymore. I addressed him calmly, asking, then in what capacity are you standing here questioning me? As an ex-boyfriend of a classmate. He looked down at me for a long while, his face turning a shade paler, before finally stepping aside to let me pass. I thought to myself, someone as proud as him probably won't come looking for me again. Yet, his breakup, our encounter, and various incidents similar to those in a past life that happened sooner or later, still instilled a deep unease in me. I began to frequently dream about the car accident from my past life. In the dream, I returned to the day of our second anniversary. Chen Jingji was driving me to dinner, holding flowers. I sat in the passenger seat, chatting about a travel show I'd recently watched and discussing future travel plans. He listened quietly to my chatter, occasionally looking at me with gentle eyes and responding, okay, as you wish. For some reason, I felt something was off with him but couldn't pinpoint what it was, so I just let it go and kept talking. As I spoke about how we should celebrate our future anniversaries, a truck suddenly ran a red light and barreled across the road. Actually, the road wasn't very busy at that time, and there weren't many people around. A timely brake could have prevented the accident, but the brakes failed. Without hesitation, Chen Jingji steered the wheel towards my side, leaving me the only chance of survival. After the violent impact, I lost consciousness for a few seconds. When I opened my eyes, I was in the bloody, stench-filled car, in too much pain to utter a word. Through my blurry vision, I saw a long shard of glass piercing Chen Jingji's chest, as he weakly pleaded with the bystanders gathering around, save her first, please, save her. I was then rescued through the shattered car window. And the last scene I saw before passing out was the car exploding. The investigation results were quickly disclosed. Besides the fatigue-driven truck driver who ran the red light, Chen Jingji's car's brake system had been tampered with. The criminal was a man overwhelmed by millions in debts from online loans, who, unable to repay, decided to lash out at society by sabotaging the brake systems of almost all the cars in that area. Thus, there was a high rate of accidents and casualties during that period. Lying on the hospital bed, I numbly watched the news on my phone, quietly listening to the comforting words of Chen Jingji's senior colleagues when they visited me. It was only when they mentioned that Chen Jingji had planned to propose to me that day that I understood why he had seemed off. The ring was found on his body. It was beautiful, and I liked it very much. During that time, everyone urged me to move forward. But I didn't understand. If I moved on, what would happen to the Chen Jingji who remained here? I was awoken by the urgent ringing of an alarm. Opening my eyes and staring blankly at the ceiling, I realized I had been crying. Every detail of that car accident was etched deeply into my bones, including the criminal who tampered with the brakes. But now, I couldn't do anything. Before the sabotage, he was just a man burdened with debt. And I dared not confront him prematurely to avoid other consequences. I could only minimize changes and wait for the day he committed the crime. During this waiting period, Chen Jingji and I got together. Before that, I had faintly noticed signs that he was about to confess his feelings. It started when a senior from the photography club asked me to pretend to be his girlfriend to fend off a girl who kept pestering him. In the quiet, elegant restaurant, The senior wrapped his arm around me and told the girl across the table, I really do have a girlfriend now. See, her name is Yu Xing. I wasn't very good at acting, fearful of giving us away. I just maintained a smile and nodded in agreement. The next second, inadvertently, I saw Chen Jingji with his friends at another table behind a frosted glass partition. He must have watched the entire scene. When our eyes met, he quickly looked down. He didn't respond to his friend's questions, just quietly eating his rice. That evening, I saw a post on his social media, a picture of a heart model cracked in half with the caption, "Heartbroken." The next day, I went to see him with his favorite green plum cake. In the corridor bathed in the sunset, he stood in front of me, looking disheartened, a shadow of his usual bright self. Watching him silently take a bite of the cake, I asked him, "Is it sweet?" "Not sweet. It's bitter." I nodded in understanding, murmured an "oh," and then changed the subject to mention a new roast duck restaurant nearby, suggesting we could go try it out together. He silently stared at the ground for a while, his voice low. "Would your boyfriend mind us going out to eat together?" I feigned surprise. "Ah, are you talking about the senior from yesterday? I was just helping to ward off some unwanted attention. How was it? Was my acting good enough to fool even you?" After a pause, seeing the light returning to his eyes, I continued. "But even if I had a boyfriend, he wouldn't mind just having a meal with a friend. Do you mind having a boyfriend?" He suddenly interrupted, looking at me nervously. With a light smile, I casually replied, "That depends on how sweet the green plum cake is. I queued for 2 hours just to buy it." He paused for a second, then stuffed the remaining half of the cake into his mouth and mumbled unclearly, "Sweet, it's incredibly sweet." That night, he posted another social media update. A photo of my silhouette with the caption, "My life to come." That's how Chen Jingji and I started dating. There were no dramatic romantic confessions like in novels or TV dramas, just two hearts holding each other. Afterwards, like any other campus couple, we spent a very ordinary but happy time together until the day marked on my calendar, just before, outside an old neighborhood at 3 in the morning, the time of the crime, a sabotaged brake system. But that day was no longer our second anniversary, and his car, due to various changes, wasn't parked there. What I saved was everyone else. At first, I was very nervous, worried about potential accidents, but reality turned out to be surprisingly smooth. Not wanting to get involved in a criminal case and face questioning, I reported to the police that I had lost a necklace worth 20,000 yuan in that area, last seen at 3:30 a.m. The police quickly checked the surveillance and then saw a suspicious man repeatedly near several cars, holding tools. The investigation and verification followed logically, and I was no longer involved. As for the necklace, I told the police the next day that I found it in a trash can. I also heard that many cars had their brakes sabotaged that night. The criminal was caught. The long-held worry probably ended there. But I still felt uneasy inside. This unease lasted until 2 weeks later, when Chen Jingji and I went to the cinema. Walking slowly through the crowd, a man with a scar on his right face brushed past me. A knife hidden in his sleeve caught my eye as he walked towards a pregnant woman. In a flash, my actions were almost faster than my thoughts, and by the time I realized it, I had already taken the knife for the pregnant woman. Lying on the ground, I finally understood what I had forgotten. The scar-faced man was a fugitive who in a previous life had died in a car accident caused by brake failure. But this time, the accident was prevented. He survived. Chaos erupted around us. Chen Jingji knelt beside me as if saying something, his veins bulging with effort, but I couldn't hear anything anymore. It felt like I had walked through a dense fog for a very long time, eventually reaching the park next to my neighborhood when I was 10 years old. Back then, I was often sick and took hormone-containing medicine, which made me very fat, so other kids would circle around me, teasing, "Big fat pig, freak, fat pig, freak." I covered my ears, desperately trying to explain to them, "I'm not a fat pig, I'm just sick, I'll get better, I'm not a fat pig." No one listened to my explanation. They just watched me squatting on the ground, laughing even louder, until a boy, like a deity descending, coldly warned them that anyone who dared to speak another word would be hung from a tree to let the birds relieve themselves on him. After they ran off screaming, the boy crouched down in front of me, who dared not look up, and comforted me in a gentle voice, "Don't be afraid, I've driven them all away." I slowly raised my head to look at his handsome face and whispered, "Brother, I'm not a fat pig, I'm just sick." He smiled at me tenderly. "Yes, I know, you're just sick, you'll get better." From that day on, whenever I went to the park, I would see him jogging. No one else wanted to play with me, only he would, but he was so handsome that it made me feel inferior and sad. I couldn't help but ask him, "Brother, what if I never get better?" He ruffled my hair and hummed thoughtfully before saying, "Then I'll become a doctor and cure you." From our first meeting to the day he left, it was only 11 days. That was the last thing he said to me before I heard his mother calling him not far away, "Jingji, Chen Jingji, come home for dinner." The next day, my father's affair was discovered, and my mother and I moved away. I never saw Chen Jingji again. When we met again, he had become a medical student, standing out in the crowd, as handsome as ever, and my illness had also healed. Later, we accidentally reunited at a basketball court, got to know each other, and became a couple. The person I had a crush on for nearly 10 years also fell for me. Later, before I could even ask if he remembered me, he died. Fortunately, this time, I saved him. If that was the price to pay, I was willing to bear it. I returned to the dense fog that wouldn't lift, vaguely feeling someone talking beside me, yet unable to react. Faintly, I seemed to hear Chen Jingji's voice, sounding helpless and hoarse as he asked someone next to him, "I've studied medicine for so long, why couldn't I save her? Teacher, what should I do?" When I regained consciousness again, the hospital room had become very quiet. Someone was sitting by the bed, using all my strength. I barely managed to lift my eyelids halfway, only able to vaguely see his face, resembling Chen Jingji, and also like Liang Su. I tried hard to distinguish for a long time, to no avail, until he spoke. "If I hadn't traveled back in time, would it not have triggered the butterfly effect that caused your injury, or did you also come back? And that's why you saved that pregnant woman?" After a pause, he laughed at himself. "I've never known, in another time and space, whether you liked me because of him, or was it because of my time traveling that indirectly made you fall for him in this timeline? I guess I'll never know the answer to that question. But, Yusong, I regret it. For a long time, I thought all difficult problems could be solved through studying logical reasoning. It turns out, loving someone isn't one of them. It's unsolvable. Just like how I seemingly can't make you, who fell in love with him, fall in love with me again. I don't really like to reminisce about the 5 years I spent with Liang Su, but a trivial incident inexplicably pops into my mind. It was probably the 3rd winter we were together. I was talking to him on the phone on my way home from work when I accidentally bumped into someone. After a yelp, my phone fell precisely through the cracks of a drain cover into the sewer below. Feeling extremely frustrated, I spent the entire night in a taxi using the little cash I had on me. I found out the next day that Liang Su had been looking for me all night. I don't know why he did that, but I knew that a relationship started with impure intentions would never end well. Talking about it now is pointless. I woke up on a very ordinary evening. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw Chen Jingji patiently wiping my fingers one by one as he bent his head. I turned my head slightly and called out softly, "Chen Jingji." His movements abruptly stopped. Without looking up, his knuckles whitened as he gripped the towel tightly. Then after a moment of silence, he got up and strode out. I watched the white ceiling and silently counted inside my head. By the 57th count, he walked back in. The corners of his eyes were red. After a thorough checkup, I was cleared to leave the hospital. On the day of my discharge, Chen Jingji took me to his place and began to take care of me cautiously, revolving his days around me. Feeling somewhat apologetic, I said to him, "I'm sorry for troubling you so much. We've only just started being together." He seemed amused and pinched my face, placing a bowl of soup in front of me, feigning annoyance. "Then drink up quickly, and get the weight you lost back." I frowned and shook my head. "But I finally managed to lose some weight. Guess it saves me the trouble of dieting." Completely losing his composure, he spooned up some soup and brought it to my lips, coaxing softly, "Come on, little Yusong, open your mouth. Listen to Dr. Brother. A healthy person is the most beautiful." That's how I recovered from my injuries. With Chen Jingji's mix of anger and coaxing, I saw Liang Su again half a year later in a supermarket. As I was looking for Chen Jingji while holding a few oranges, one accidentally rolled away. It kept rolling until someone bent down and picked it up. It was Liang Su. He stepped forward, placing the orange back in my arms. During our silent gaze, I sincerely thanked him. "Liang Su, thank you." Just then, Chen Jingji's voice called out as he was looking for me, "Yusong." I quickly responded, "Coming," and brushed past Liang Su who was about to speak. Just like in this vast universe, we may have brief encounters, but ultimately, we drift apart. That night, while organizing the study, I saw a cartoon drawing in a photo frame inside the glass cabinet. It depicted a chubby little girl with a bubble above her head that read "Brother." I took the photo to ask Chen Jingji when he recognized me. He smiled, his eyebrows slightly raised, and casually flipped the frame over. I was stunned. It was a photo of him, but the focus was on me passing by behind him. The date recorded was the day we went hiking, so, the next day, he sat down beside me. From then on, our story took a new beginning.